Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob Bozovich.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast.
This is episode 157 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you listened in last week, you would have heard of two different interviews, I should say, or a two-part interview with Vanessa Snyder, recent Ironman completionist and member of the group. She, in episode 1, or Monday's episode, she went through and talked all about her early training career and, life and so forth, early days into triathlon. Episode 2 was Thursday's episode was all about her Ironman training and her, Ironman race. Today's episode is going to be all about swimming and swimming for triathlon. Two different topics there. We have a subject matter expert on, Brian, a friend of mine, and he sits down and gives me an hour of his time to go through, first off, his credentials, swimming as a young boy through, high school and college, swimming, therefore competitively, and then swimming, recreationally, training, the differences there between, triathlon training and swimming and training for, competition. In addition, he gives some tips and tricks for, triathletes, or I should say new open water swimmers. These can translate to that just any open water swimming disciplines that you're going to be looking at there. I do want to apologize if the interview seems a little choppy or different than our normal setup. This was the first interview that I tried to do live in the same room. What I mean by that is everything else we've done, except like when John and I record, or all of the other ones, have been over Skype. So I tried to do a dual mic setup on my computer. It was working when my tech friend helped me set it up, but by the time I made it, on location, nothing was working. I actually couldn't get any sound, so eventually I was able to just get one microphone. Brian and I tried to sit down with that mic, between the two of us there, and it didn't work out so well. The sound quality was just way too quiet for us to literally both lean in on the one mic, since I use a headset mic versus a stand mic. So we ended up just passing the microphone back and forth between the two of us. I hope everything comes out clear, because there was a lot of great information. It sounds okay when I listen to it, but I will let you guys be the judge, and I'll try to get these issues fixed for next time. Without further ado, let's get into the interview with Brian. Hey guys, it's Rob here. I'm going to be joined with Brian Lytle, a friend of mine, and we're going to be going over a lot of swimming stuff. A little bit thrown off right now, and I hope the sound quality on this comes out okay, because I had a tech friend help me set up dual mics, so that way I'd be able to have everything work, and when I get into the field here, in order to do it, nothing seems to work. So we're actually going to be passing one headset back and forth. Hopefully the sound quality is good on this and you guys can hear everything. So, we just wrapped up Ultra August here, where John and I each had interviewed a couple of luminaries in the field, and then we did a wrap-up show there where we basically gave the rundown of the questions we asked and our favorite answers and so forth. We're going to be kicking off Tri-September here. You'll have known that because the last two episodes, if you listen to them, were Vanessa Snyder, both hour-long shows, one leading up to, I should say, her entry in her early life in athletics, and then, getting into triathlon, doing, training and short course. Then part 2, the second interview there, was all about her training for her Lake Placid Ironman, and racing and what she did there. So the next three episodes that we are going to be doing, this one starting it off, are going to be activity specific. First one today is going to be swim specific. The next one will be bike followed up with run. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a luminary on, basically somebody who, is, when I say at large, knows a lot about the discipline outside of triathlon, but also knows about it in triathlon. So that way we can talk, a little bit about the differences between it, because as you heard Vanessa saying at the end of her show, or the episode we did with her, swimming is much different than swimming for triathlon. Running is much different, than running for triathlon, and the same with bike there. So this was supposed to be more of a conversation. It's going to be a little, as I said, choppy because we're going to be handing the mic back and forth. I just want to go ahead, hand it over to my friend Brian here, let him say hello, and then I'll come back with a little bit of an intro, and then let him tell you all about him. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Good to be here. Hi, guys. Name's Brian Lytle. Quick background, upper 30s, 38 years old. I guess I can admit that. I grew up as a competitive swimmer from about second grade the whole way up through the end of my college career. And so a lot of time and effort and adventures all connected to the swimming world. And hopefully with a conversation with Rob and some guidance from him and his podcast expertise here, we can try to get some experience headed off your direction and try to share some experiences that may be helpful to all of you guys.
Well, Brian, I didn't want you to jump right in with your incomplete bio in 30 seconds or not. I was hoping that would last maybe, 5-10 minutes here. So I'm going to get the mic back to you. I just wanted, everyone to, hear from Brian, his more of an in-depth, what got him into swimming, both when he was young. You heard him say it there, and I'll let him talk for hopefully a few minutes here, a good while, regarding his swimming career, both in, high school, college, post-college, when he first started, getting into triathlons and so forth. So back to Brian.
Okay, so we'll give this a go. So a little bit more of the specifics on my background and how I got into the swimming world and where the swimming world has taken me. I started swimming competitively when I was in second grade. Why? Well, like everything else, you go with your friends. It's a social thing. And I think even to this extent right now, we get into athletics to some degree, even at this age, because it's a community, it's a culture, it's a supportive group that we know. Of course, those long runs, long rides, those long hikes, you really get to walk and talk and get to know each other well, and it's a support system. So, of course, in the second grade, when everybody else heads that direction into the swimming pool, and it's an excuse for you to be able to swim in the morning and not just in the afternoons when you're splashing around with your friends, that's even better. So that took us into the swimming world competitively around second grade, and of course just continued to develop the monster from there. So elementary school, middle school, and then of course swam competitively in high school. And then that progressed into having the opportunity to swim in the college world as well. So I was fortunate to have some really good coaches coming up through developing technique, which of course is the foundation of everything. And then of course when I got into the college world, that was a great foundation to work off of. Just so happened that those coaches at the college level as well were real focused on the technique as well. And so the mindset, the training mindset, the focus on technique was part of the development from high school, certainly high school, and really start to pay attention to that, and right up through the college world. So along with the competitive swimming background, I guess I'll give you a little more specifics. I was a freestyle and backstroke specialist, if you want to call it that, primarily at the distance level. When I got into college and there was the option of going longer, that's kind of the way, the direction I went. So in high school, relatively speaking, your events are not that long in the high school world. Your longest event in high school is a 500. So that is 20 laps of the pool. Eventually you get into the college world and you have the opportunity to do 1,000-yard competition or a 1650 event, which means you're now doing 40 laps or 66 laps. That's of course all freestyle. And then there's also backstroke, where in high school it was a 100-yard backstroke. In college you now have the option to do a 200-yard backstroke. So basically, the longer the better for me. Um, Seemed to be my favorite event, I would say, was the 1,000 freestyle. Certainly, probably my best event was the 1650. I won't say that was my favorite event because it's an absolutely brutal event to add those next 650 yards onto it. But that's where I seem to gravitate in all the events, was to the longer stuff. Um, Switch gears. So once I moved beyond the competitive swimming world of college, I had the opportunity to stick around while I was doing my student teaching and some other things to start to get into the coaching world at the college level as well. In between each of my college years, when I was swimming, I also had the chance to work as a swim camp counselor. And when you have kids for an entire week, and all you do is multiple sessions a day with technique, trying to teach the young ones the perspective and the reason, the logic behind the different things that you're doing, and it's all technique driven. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's been a lot of background in technique in my career. I've been lucky to have some success, competitively as well. But I think the key at this point, as I look down the road to where I'm at now in my life, it's the technique, it's the background, and really the emphasis on that has continued to be the foundation, because we all know as we get older, most of the time we start to get slower. But the technique allows you to continue doing things more efficiently, less injury prone, and it just kind of lengthens out your ability to be able to experience that swimming and competitive juices farther into your 30s, 40s, 50s, hopefully 60s if you're lucky. Of course, some of us are there and some of us are slowly getting to that point. Switch gears a little bit. So that's kind of my background. Obviously, that competitive swimming ended at the end of the college world, and so now what? And that's where triathlon comes in. That's where the bicycling comes in. That's where the hiking comes in. You're active, you're competitive. That organized sport, if you want to call it that, is now gone. So now what? And so that's where the opportunity to get into local 5Ks and 10Ks when you're talking about running, or local triathlons. That's where you start to try that and try to experience that competitive nature all over again, just in a new venue, because you certainly miss that supportive group. You certainly miss those experiences, and it gives you a goal to work towards. And so that's where the triathlon and the running kind of came into my life, and of course, kind of snowballed from there. As a lot of us know, when we get into this, we do it as a lifestyle. We do it as something that we enjoy, something as a stress relief, something that just becomes foundation and part of our everyday routine, because we need it, because we enjoy it, whether that's physically for the health or even just mentally for the health, to be able to de-stress after a long, tough day. So that's where the triathlon and running stuff started to fit into the whole picture at that point. And so you start to try your first triathlon or your first 5K, and you realize, you know what, that was a lot of fun. Let's do another one. And everything starts to ramp up, and it gets bigger and better every time. So you try to go faster, you try to go farther, you try to find that next neat course, that next big challenge, and things just seem to inevitably start to snowball and get bigger and bigger. Let's hit a timeout.
So I grabbed the mic from Brian for a second here. I wanted to cut in a few things because he's jumping right in it, going through a lot of stuff pretty quickly here. And a couple things you need to know is, Brian, as you can tell from his passion and how quickly he's talking, when he gets into something, he is all into something. And, it'll come up here maybe in a little bit, near the end of the show. But he is currently training for an Ironman triathlon. That said, he has done some 73 distance races. I'm looking across the table, and a lot of shorter ones. That said, and I know John, I jokingly say that being said because John likes to tease me for saying that too much. Anyways, Brian has done some training races recently, of which he's very humble, because when he says about jumping in or you're doing a 5K, he commonly will jog down from his house to our 5K, either place top 3 in it, win his age group, doesn't even stick around for medals, heads out. Same deal. He entered a triathlon the other week or month, and he's saying, "Oh, I did okay," and he's very calm about it and modest. And I not jokingly but kind of seriously said, Brian, did you win? And he's like, yeah. So I still don't know if he won his age group or the thing outright, but he knows his stuff. And I'm going to try to pass the mic back and forth here a little bit. I'll try to interject a bit and slow him down with some of the questions, because what I really want him to try to get into for us is the difference between competitive swimming, where you're turning all the laps in the pool, you got the black line beneath you, and maybe the what we're looking at as far as if there is a technique difference for triathlon, and I will say up front, and this is me not knowing anything and not having the swimming experience, and that is, I go out and swim. When I say I swim, I turn laps in the pool. I can do a flip turn, but I don't practice it because most triathlons are going to be an open water swim. So I am secondarily, when I'm in the triathlon world, I'm out there swimming using mostly upper body, not so much using my legs, because I know that whenever I'm in the water, I'm using a lot of chest because cycling doesn't use that much upper body and running doesn't. So I'm trying to save it as much as possible. That being said, there's another one for you. Brian is a much better athlete. He is much faster at everything than I am, the swim, the bike, and the run. And as you hear him saying, technique goes a long way in all three of them. But I really want to get his expertise on the swimming, because he's been there and done that competitively. And I want to see what translates for triathlon the same and what translates for triathlon differently, from the standalone sport to it being, 1/3 of what you're doing for the day there.
Okay, so the mic's back to me. Let me talk to you a little bit about, just based off of some experience and my perspective. Maybe some of this is just my opinion, but let me give you a couple points, swimming wise, kind of coming from my experience and my perspective here. Some suggestions. When you're getting into the triathlon world, for most people, and again, this isn't my experience, so it's interesting to talk to others. But for most people, their perspective is, I just want to survive that swim, and then I'll start worrying about the rest of the race afterwards. I just want to get through the swim, get me back on solid ground. A lot of that has to do with your experience level and your comfort level in the water, obviously. So one of my big suggestions early on, if you're just getting into triathlon or you're really trying to find a degree of success, is let's find a comfort level. And just like anything else, it's repetition. It's doing it over and over. If you're going to go out and hit a golf ball, you're going to do it over and over and over until you eventually can hit the thing straight. Doesn't start off that way. You have a lot of worm burners. You have a lot that go off to the right and to the left, and some that trickle 2 feet in front of you, and somehow they end up behind you sometimes. But you do it over and over until everything is refined, and you're pretty confident that the odds are in your favor that drive is going down the fairway before you ever step foot on a golf course. Same thing with the swimming world. It's repetition and get that comfort level. Certainly you're in a controlled environment in a swimming pool. So when you jump in that warm water, you jump in that clean, clear water, you have a black line to follow and lane markers on each side in many cases. Those are all comfort zones. When you go to the pond, when you go to the lake for your open water swim, a lot of those things are no longer there, and so all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. If you can establish some things, some basic things that are now habitual, and then as a result natural from there in the swimming pool before you get to the pond, there's a couple things that I think I can give you here that may help out in that case. So without trying to get too technical, let me try to give you some technical advice. Number one, body position. Rob was talking about trying not to use his legs because you're going to need your legs the rest of the triathlon. Try to do everything upper body. Yep, I agree with that. But in order to not have to use your legs, you really want to work on your body position. And what I mean by that is when you're swimming, whether it's a pool or a lake, the most efficient position for you to be in is if you're on the surface of the water. Looking from the side, you would be horizontal. You want to avoid having your legs down below you. You don't want to look like you're running on a treadmill in the water. That's a very inefficient, there's a lot of drag, and you're taking a lot of your energy in trying to get yourself to stay on the surface. There's an easy fix for that.
Rob, jumping back in, cutting Brian off for a second. I agree with what Brian's saying. I don't like not kick my legs like as if I'm paralyzed the entire time. I do flutter my legs just enough to keep in position, like Brian's saying, and that is the closer your, I'm going to say, heels are to the top of the water, the farther down your head is going to be. When I say further down the water, if your head, and he'll get a little more technical on this, but if your head is out of the water, that means your feet are going to be several inches down below. And if you just picture an airplane taking off or a boat getting up on plane, like that 45-degree angle or so, and that's what he's going to be getting into here, is that you're going to be creating a lot of drag, and you're going to have to work a lot harder. And so the more you can be on plane, that's when the boat finally tips and it's just rolling right along. That's where, if you're doing your breathing correctly, you're breathing to the, bilaterally, right, left, or, and such, you're just rolling your face out of the water, but the top of your head is pretty much, it's almost like you just put your face flat down into a puddle or into a sink. That you want to have your face flat, your back flat, your heels flat.
And that's where I was headed with it. He read my mind. So that body position, trying to get your body to be on the surface of the water, as if you were laying on a bed, that is directly tied to your head position. Your body is going to follow what your head does. So if you're looking forward or you're breathing forward, that means your hips are going to drop. That means your feet are going to drop, and that's much more inefficient. That's a lot more energy to keep yourself on the surface in that position versus simply looking down. Okay, so you want to look at the surface of the water, and you want that to basically cut across the very exact perfect top of your head. So in order to do that, you simply just have to look down. You don't want to look forward. Okay, now the problem is when we get into a triathlon, we need to figure out where we're going. And so we have to sight. We have to look for buoys. We have to figure out where we're headed back down to shore. You want to do that real quick and then get those eyes back to the bottom of the lake or back to the bottom of a swimming pool and look at that black line. You really don't want to look for the wall that's coming at you in the swimming pool up ahead. That's why there's a T on the bottom of most pools, so that you know it's coming. Okay, and of course you can use your peripheral vision and kind of look up with your eyes and kind of get a hint that that wall is coming, but you want to avoid looking and lifting your head up forward, because that's what's really going to take your body out of position, and that's what means that's what's going to lead you to be much more inefficient. In other words, using a whole lot of energy just trying to stay on the surface. Okay, so my first big tip would be body position directly connected with your head position, and that's an easy fix. As Rob had just mentioned, the other thing is inevitably you've got to breathe. You want to take those breaths to a side, and that's also going to help with keeping your body position up on the surface. And when I say body position, particularly your hips, your knees, your feet, you want to keep those up to the surface. So if you can roll to a side to get that breath, what we call rotary breathing, that's the way to go for sure. Okay, like I said, in a pond when you're doing your triathlon swim, you'll probably have to lift your head forward to see where you're going, but make that a quick little sight and then back down in. Take another 5-6 strokes, another couple breaths before you have to look forward again for sure. That all helps with your body position. As Rob was talking earlier, and I'm not going to disagree with him, but I'm going to kind of throw another perspective out there. I was talking about comfort level a little bit a while ago, and just the repetition and the success and the comfort level that comes with being able to do things over and over. And he said, well, I don't do flip turns very often because I don't have to do those out when I'm doing a triathlon. And I would agree with that. Just another perspective, maybe another for instance, or what if you learned flip turns? Well, now you're forced to go upside down. Now you're forced to blow air out your nose. Now you're forced to figure out which direction is up. And it's one of those things that is really uncomfortable for non-competitive swimmers. If you do something like that and you start working through it, it's another level of accomplishment in the pool that you probably could have avoided and probably were trying to avoid on purpose because it's really tough, it's really awkward, it's really uncomfortable. when you try those flip turns at each wall where you do the somersault and put your feet on the wall, I promise you're going to get water up your nose. It's not fun, but that's early on in the process. Eventually you master that. Eventually, like anything else, you've established a little bit more confidence and a mastery of that skill. And it's one more thing to just kind of put in your pocket as another accomplishment that down the road eventually adds to your comfort level. Do you need a good flip turn to be a good competitive swimmer? Yes. Do you need a flip turn to be a good triathlon swimmer? No. Um, so I'm not saying you have to do one, but just as another way to look at it, maybe it helps in that confidence and that comfort level. And to me, the more confidence and comfort you can have coming out of a swimming pool, that's going to translate into a little bit more success in the swimming portion when you head to the lake sometime soon.
Okay, I stole the mic back from Brian for a second, and that I just want to interject that I can do flip turns. I choose not to. Now, I'm not as proficient at them, and he's right. Exactly what you're saying is whenever you do them the first time, you're going to get the water up your nose. You're going to come out crooked, and I preferred to learn in the deep end because when I learned in the shallow end, inevitably you're going to kick off wrong and you're going to skid the bottom a little bit, or the lane buoy lines and so forth. And I've done all that, and so I can do flip turns. But one thing, and maybe he'll tell me the secret here, is I choose not to do them more so, and I'm going to say it's a vertigo type thing. I get more water in my ears, and I don't wear earplugs. I don't wear a swim cap, and that could be part of the reason why. But if I'm going to be going out for 2 or 3,000 yard training swim in the pool, I don't want to be halfway in as I physically will start getting sick to my stomach. I don't know if that's something that's just me or if he knows a tip around that. But I'm going to agree with one thing he's saying and just take it a step farther down the road. And that is, he's saying about building confidence, and that's something you're going to do. The very first thing he said is you're going to be flipped upside down and you're not going to know where you're at and you got to figure it out. If you do practice those, and basically if you practice being disoriented, that might help us help the newbies, you guys out there, when you're going to be in a maybe in a mass start or where you might get jostled around. The more we said this, and you've heard us a bunch in the ultra episode, you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and the more that you can build your confidence in all areas and aspects, it's going to help. But that's personally why I don't do them being flip turns.
Yeah, so it's back to me, and I'll piggyback on what Rob was saying there. Yeah, one of my points, like I said, you don't have to be a great flip turn person if you're a triathlete. Part of my reasoning for trying to work on those flip turns in the pool is just to go through something that's really uncomfortable and really foreign and really new and something that's not working very well at first, and you're able to do that in a controlled environment of the swimming pool. And again, you'll master it. It's going to take some time, and some people are going to pick it up quicker than others, but you'll master that. And that's one more thing that just adds to that level of confidence, because it's one thing that you hated, that you were avoiding, that is now mastered. And it's one of those things that, okay, if I did the flip turn, heck, I can handle some of these other things that might be thrown at me too. As far as tips for those flip turns, you're going to get water in your nose and water in your ears from time to time when you swim, for sure. Again, like I said with body position before, your head dictates your body position. One of the things that helps with your flip turns is if you take that head directly down. So you take your nose to your belly button, blow air out your nose, dive that head down to your belly button into a tight ball, and that will force your legs to come straight over. If you happen to get halfway over on that somersault, first of all, if you're not tight in a ball, but certainly as you're doing that somersault and then you look to the left or look to the right, that's where your body starts to go all squirrely and you have no idea which direction is up. One quick drill, and I'll try to describe this even though we don't have any visuals to work with on podcast. If you're swimming down a swimming pool, take 3, 4, 5 strokes, get yourself into a pretty good groove as you're swimming down the lane. Take your final breath as if you're going to do a flip turn, and you don't want the wall anywhere nearby. Just simply do a somersault. Okay, so take your final breath, take another stroke or two, and then take that nose right to your belly button and let your feet come over. Stay in that ball, nice and tight, and as long as you haven't turned your head left or right, you'll come back around with your head back up to the surface, and you'll be looking forward to the direction that you were going to be headed anyhow. That's kind of a nice telltale sign. So if you come up and you're looking at a lane marker, or you're looking at where you came from, the sign, the hint right there is, okay, I must have looked left or right. I must have turned my head while I was doing my somersault. So if you can do one successfully, come up, get yourself on the surface, couple more strokes of freestyle, get a breath, and go right into another somersault. You'll probably get 2 or 3 of those as you head down the lane towards the other end, depending if it's a 25-yard or a 50-lane pool, 50-meter pool. So give a couple of those a try. And again, that head position really has a lot to do with how your body's going to operate, whether it's body position, flip turns, or anything else. So just a little hint and suggestion there. Hopefully that made sense without having any kind of visuals around. We'll shift gears a little bit here and talking about the swimming that's in a swimming pool and how that's going to start to convert into doing a triathlon, where most of the time you're swimming in murky water, you're swimming in a pond, you're swimming in a lake, might be a river. Certainly you probably don't have the luxury of a black line below you and clear water to see what's going on below you. And that alone sometimes is enough to really weird people out when they start swimming and it's difficult to even see your fingertips. Nothing's going to come from the darkness and tackle you and bite you and take you down for dinner. Sometimes those things, just when you can't see what's below you, you start having some of those weird thoughts. You're out of your comfort zone, and what's going to happen? There's no bottom to touch. Well, I bet when you swim in the swimming pool, you didn't need that bottom. You never touched that bottom for all the laps that you did in those workouts. You have the ability. You just have to start reasoning through and saying, you know what, I've done it before without having a bottom below me. I'm not going to need it now. I didn't run into those issues before. I'll be okay. And you start talking yourself off the cliff. Certainly don't panic, stay calm. And that's why it's real important to go through some of those adverse experiences in a swimming pool first so that you build that confidence, because you really don't want to have your first experience in open water to be a negative one. Ultimately, we're doing these things because we enjoy them, and we want to keep these positive experiences. So it's a matter of preparation in that case too. One of the things I'll tell you I'm dealing with right now personally, because I do have a background in swimming. I've had the luxury and I've been spoiled, and I'll try to say this in a modest way. But most of the local triathlons that I've done, I've had the ability to kind of get my own clean water. I've been able to just sprint right at the beginning, kind of get out in front, and make sure that I wasn't going to have any conflict with the rest of the people swimming around me. Most of us, in all reality, are not going to have that experience. We're going to now be back in the washing machine effect. We'll be back with another 20, 30 people around us. They're not following a black line, and neither am I. And we're going to cross paths. And that means we're going to get kicked, or that means we're going to get punched. It's all unintentional, but it's going to happen. And so that adds a whole nother element of adventure to it, if we want to call it adventure.
All right, I stole the mic back from Brian for 1 second here. And this is something John and I had shared on another show, and I'm going to go back and just do only a minute on this because we had covered it previously. And I'm similar to Brian, and I don't have the, all the accolades behind and medals and trophies and college career behind me that he does. But for some reason, in a local triathlon, I'm a good swimmer. I do the same thing he does. I sprint, beat feet to get out to the front, and I'll be one of the first 3 out there. But I like to go back to, my brother-in-law and his brother-in-law and my friend John that we had talked about, and that is, and not John, the co-host, my other friend John. And that's, if you want to try to get your own clean water, one of 2 things you can do is just move all the way to the side, all the way to the right, or all the way to the left. Preferably, I'm going to say move to the left. If you predominantly breathe to the right, move to the right if you breathe to the left. Because what you can do then is you put the whole field to the side of you, and you can basically, as you're turning to take your breaths, you can sight off of the people next to you. You can assume they're all swimming in the correct direction, and you can sight off of them. The other thing you can do is give yourself 15 or 30 seconds. Just wait. Just let everybody else go off before you. Wait, 15 or 30 seconds, because in the grand scheme of things, if being in that washing machine is going to cause you to have some distress, you risk panicking. You might lose 2 minutes hanging on a one of the kayaks trying to catch your breath and get your composure out there. But you can just give yourself 30 seconds, let the crowd get out ahead of you, and then just race your own race, follow afterwards.
So I'll give you one experience here that I did have. When I did swim with a group in a triathlon. The first time I experienced a half Ironman triathlon, I was intimidated by the distance. Just like we all try to choose the next adventure, the next challenge. I thought I was ready to do a half Ironman, and so I took the challenge on. But I'll be honest, I was intimidated by the distances that were waiting for me that day. I knew I was comfortable on the swim. I was going to be fine with that because of my background. But I had a long 56-mile bike ride ahead of me. I had never done that before, and now I'm going to do it on race day for the first time. And then I had a half marathon waiting for me after that. And again, that's a beast of a run in itself, and I have 2 activities waiting before that even gets to start. So my grand plan for that day was in the swim, I'm going to take it really easy. I'm going to be comfortable in the water. I'm just going to take it nice and slow and steady. I'm going to come out of the pond and I'm going to feel fine. I'll be fully rested for the rest of the day. So that means I was back with the group of swimmers, which, like I said, I typically have the luxury of not dealing with. I was in that washing machine effect that I'm talking about. So purely by accident, I was headed slightly to the right. There was another guy headed slightly to the left. You know how this all ends. It was a left hook to the temple, and all of a sudden my goggles are off. I'm one of those guys who wears contacts. I'm blind without them. I generally don't like to get punched in the temple, so the whole thing was just not an enjoyable experience. So in the middle of the lake, I'm trying to fix my goggles, hoping that I still have 2 contacts in my eyes so I can see what's going on. And that was enough to make me realize, you know what, I'm going to sprint. I'm going to get my own clean water. I'm going to get out there. One of the things that I'm dealing with right now, and one of the big debates I still haven't sorted out for my full Ironman that I'm tackling here in 4 weeks, is what am I going to do as far as goggles go in the water? And you would think I would have this figured out by now, but what I can tell you is I wear what's called Swedish goggles. They are cheap, they are rough, they are simple, and they've worked ever since I was in about 8th grade. To describe them more thoroughly, they're a piece of molded plastic. You put them together on your own. They cost about $5, so you even assemble them on your own as a piece of string for the nose piece. But the bad news is they are a piece of molded plastic. When you get hit in the eye, whether it's a heel, a head, a fist, it's going to leave a mark. And I've gone to the doctor's office to get stitches because of those goggles. So my big worry is if I stick with my comfort zone, which is the goggles I've worn for the last quarter century, and I take a heel, all the training I've done for months probably has to come to a halt because I'm taking a trip to get stitches. So I've been looking for new goggles. I've been looking for something else that's going to work. And I still haven't found anything that matches those $5 goggles that I've worn for the last quarter century. So those are things that this new adventure, this new challenge has forced me into, and I don't have an answer for that yet. So I guess that's part of the process. I guess that's part of the adventure. Just like you figure out your bike fit, just like you figure out what shoes and what outfit are comfortable for your run and your bike, just like it's going to take time to figure out your nutrition plan for the day. I guess this is just one more component that I'm still sorting through. So that's one of those things that I'm still trying to figure out to avoid the washing machine. I'm hoping maybe I can just stick with the goggles I have and still trying to find, like Rob was saying, find my own clean water. That may mean that I have to slide away from those buoys. The buoys, of course, are your shortest route, but it would be like on a high school track if you're running and you decide to run out there in lane 6 versus lane 1. It's going to be a little bit longer, but maybe that keeps you away from the craziness and lets you get to the back to land in one piece. So that's another component to figure out is just find your own clean water. One other thing I would throw at you in that case, I would prefer, if I were a weaker swimmer, I would prefer to start a little bit farther back in the pack. And if I had a choice, I would like to have to try to work my way around some slower swimmers that are in front of me. The one thing that would really be tough for me would be to feel like I'm being swallowed up by the crowd behind me. So if I'm a weaker swimmer, I would want to not be too aggressive and get myself out in the front end of those fast swimmers. It would be like saying, you know what, I know I'm not going to win this 5K. In fact, this is my first 5K ever, but I'm going to start right at the front with those fast guys that do this, and they're straight out of, they're a college runner. You know what's going to happen. They're going to swallow you up and they're going to go flying past you. That's okay on land. But what happens when they're grabbing your ankles? What happens if they're swimming on top of you? You hear those stories, and that would not be a comfortable feeling. That would take away from that enjoyment factor. So I would suggest starting farther back, and then I would rather be one of those that works my way up through a crowd, even if that means that it slows my swimming down a little bit because I'm getting hung up by the people in front of me. At least the experience is in my control, and I don't have the sharks coming from behind that are going to swallow me up and take me under and be too aggressive. So that's just a suggestion. One other possibility, and Rob was just kind of pointing this out here, kind of on a notebook to me, drafting. I've been reading the rules and trying to get up to date on all the rules of what I have to be careful doing and not doing while I'm bike riding, and that whole process and all the rules that happen with in regards to drafting in the bicycling world. The good news in swimming is you can draft. There's no way to control that, and there is such thing as drafting in swimming. If you can stay right in their white water, and you don't need to be putting your hands on their feet, but if you can stay right in that white water and keep your hands entering, a foot or two behind those feet in front of you, you're in their draft. You can also stay a little bit to their left or a little bit to their right of their feet. There's probably a range of, I'd say, 3 to 4 to 5 feet. Kind of comes off at a cone from about their ankles and comes down around behind them. Like I said, probably 3 to 4 feet, 5 feet behind them. And if you're anywhere in that area, they're creating a draft for you, and they're able to do a little bit of the work for you. Two pluses for that. Obviously, they're doing some work that you don't have to. That's kind of the idea of drafting. The other part is you're going to gamble a little bit and say, you know what? They're probably following the person in front of them. Somebody's actually taken the time to do the sighting. And as long as you're following the feet in front of you, you're probably headed in the right general direction. That means you're not going to have to sight nearly as much. And again, you don't want to have to look forward very often because that does take your body out of position. And again, that's more energy getting back onto the surface of the water, bringing your hips, your knees, your feet back up to the top. So that kind of comes back around to full circle and some of that technique stuff, kind of the big picture things that you're trying to make foundational and kind of habitual. Let some other guys do the work for you if you can. Certainly take advantage of that. So that's one other suggestion as far as avoiding the dreaded, what I call the washing machine, a place that none of us want to be in, okay?
All right, Rob, again, I stole the mic back from Brian, and just one thing that I had written down, and I had asked him to say it and go over the drafting, and kind of what my thought on it was too, is if you do start at the back, and I don't want to say if you are the strongest swimmer in the race, go to the back, because you want to get out ahead. You want to get out and get it done and not have to go around people. But if you put yourself at the back to get out of the washing machine, and then you can start catching people, and if you start drafting off of somebody and realize that you are faster than them, well, you let them do the work, and then you're going to get around them. Once again, drafting in the swim. This is where it's legal, not the bike. Then you get out in front of that person, you get the next person, and the next person. You're eventually going to find somebody that is about the same pace that you are, and you're just going to follow them in. Or you're going to pass 15 people, and you're going to end up picking up time because they've done the work and they've essentially helped you out. And that's something where, and Brian, when I give the mic back to him in a minute, can tell me, I believe that's one of the big differences as well between, I'm going to say, triathlon, swimming, and competition, because in competition, from what I'm going to say, in a pool, you're in your own lane. I guess, if you do go to some of these races or events, like you've heard, Amy or John or somebody talk about, where it is a jump off a barge and, swim to the shore, you would then, obviously have more people in the water that you're going to be following. But the differences between, I'm going to say, competition, meaning pool in a lane, and triathlon, the that competition, you're going to be solo, and triathlon, you are going to have a group, and this is a valid strategy. One thing I want to have Brian go over here, and when I say ignorantly, it's more like I don't know if there is a difference. So I'm going to oversimplify when I ask the question and or give my opinion or the statement, the answer, and that is, hey, you're looking at several different disciplines here. We have, not disciplines, distances. You're going to have a sprint, and just for argument's sake, let's say it's a 400 yard. You have your international distance, which is just under a mile. You have your, you're going to have the half iron, which is a 1.2 mile swim, and the Ironman swim, which is the 2.4 mile swim. My ignorance in the sport is you can sprint in all out for 400 yards. I mean, for me, that puts me out of the water in about 6 minutes. But as I start getting into the 20, 25-minute length time frame for the much longer sprints, because they are variable depending on the venue, or the international Olympic distance, that 3/4 of a mile, 0.9 mile, tenths of a mile swim, you can't sprint the whole thing. You're going to actually have a little bit of pacing strategy. When you come to the half iron 1.2, you got to slow down a little bit more. And the Ironman, I guess I have swam it in the pool on a training, but I've never done an open water or a 2.4 mile race. So I want to hear what Brian's thoughts are as far as a strategy for each one of those distances there.
Okay, so talking a little bit about the swim and how it relates to the different distances, whether it's a sprint try, it's a Olympic distance try, the half Ironman or the full Ironman. I would say it's probably similar to how do you train and race a 5K run versus a 10K run versus a half marathon versus the full. Certainly the volume when it comes to training would have to go up, and naturally your pace and your intensity is going to drop as you increase the distance. General, more specific strategy, it's been my experience. Right off the beginning, you're excited. Right off the beginning, you're nervous. Right off the beginning, you're trying to find your own little space. And so that first start is, ready, set, go. And boy, you start kicking and you start pulling and you get yourself out there into your own little space as quickly as you can. Try to establish your own little area, knowing that people are going to encroach on it, but try to find your own little area to swim in. And then once you get out into that area, you really want to start to settle down. Even in a sprint triathlon, I'm kicking my legs like crazy at the beginning. Number one, so nobody can grab them. But number two, because of course I want my kick to help me, swim fast and get out into that little area. So really there's a degree at the front where boom, it just feels like you're shot out of a cannon and you're really just trying to get your pace up. You're trying to get your own little happy area. And then you just hope you can keep that. But at some point, inevitably, and when I say at some point, certainly within about 2 minutes, you want to start to settle back into a comfort zone. As Rob said before, he's trying to save his legs because he knows that the bike and the run are very demanding of the legs. So start to settle down and just use those legs, a little flutter here, a flutter there, just to help with that body position. And most of the work is probably going to be upper body if you can. Probably different approaches as you approach shore, whether that is 10 minutes of swimming or 2.4 miles later. Do you want to get those legs back into the action, try to get some blood flowing, or do you just want to keep them relaxed, knowing that, I've got to run. The last local triathlon I did, it was a hike. It was a couple hundred yards. I would say probably 300 yards from the water to the transition area. It was uphill. So it was kind of a wake-up call just to switch to land, and now, okay, you're running, and you're running barefoot. You're up some steps. You're through the grass. You're over a mound, and it's quite a run. So do you want those legs to feel fresh? And how is that gonna convert? What approach are you going to use so that your legs feel ready to go when they hit the land? Some people, if they haven't used their legs much, they probably want to kick a little bit. It was my experience that I just wanted to kind of maintain my pace, maintain my comfort zone. And again, it probably comes into what your end goal is too. If you really want to, if you're really racing to win, you're probably trying to be a little bit aggressive. Try to get that little gap as you head into the transition area. If your goal is to just finish, you know what, this full Ironman that I'm going to do here in 4 weeks, I just want to finish the thing. So I'm not worried about gaining an extra 5 or 10 seconds as I finish the swim and get into the transition, because I know I have many hours in front of me. I have a long day in front of me. So really the back half of the swim, that's going to be kind of a subjective decision. But I would say at the beginning, I think universally a lot of the time the approach is, you feel like you're excited, you're nervous, you're ready to go. Get yourself up and get yourself going. Find your comfort zone and then just try to settle into that little area for as long as you can. One thought that just crossed my mind here as I was talking about leaving the water, although this is kind of focused a lot on water today. One thing that I have found that has helped me in the just kind of establish that comfort zone when I go from the swim to the bike transition. Again, I said you'll leave the water, you'll be pulling your goggles and your cap off, and you'll be working your way up there. When you go into a transition area, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of bikes that all look the same. So before I even started that day, I parked my car, I went over and registered, and I walked my bike over to the transition area. You find your own little home, you get everything set up. And as soon as I had everything kind of set and hanging on the rack, my next thing before I did any kind of warm up, before I did anything else, is I went for a walk down to the lake. And from there, I followed the exact path out of the water and up through the grass and up over the hill and right into the transition area. And I just walked it, but I wanted to get an idea visually of what that was going to look like. And then the key is not just to get up the hill and get an idea of how steep that hill is, but the next big thing is you don't want to walk into that pile of bikes and not know whether you want to go right or left or where your white bike is or your black bike is compared to everybody else's. So I would walk that. I actually walked it and I went in and I said, okay, I'm walking in and mine is straight across up there on the left. And I knew in my head at least where I was looking. I knew at least which rack I was headed to, because it's one of those goofy things where you see a transition area and you see somebody run in circles looking around, and it's like you've walked out of Walmart and you came out the exit where you actually went in the other door down there, and you're looking for your car and you have no idea where it is because it's 4 rows over. It's kind of nice to eliminate that. Any element of surprise that you can eliminate going into a race day, I would suggest doing that. So just a little hint, a little bit of experience that I found there. Go for a walk from the water after your swim right up to the transition area and figure out what that's going to look like when you enter it. Granted, it's going to be a little bit quicker and a little bit more crowded with people that have come out of the water before you, but your bike is in the same spot. So at least you know where you're headed, at least in the general zip code. You know which row you're looking for. So again, just eliminate some of those unknowns. Anything you can eliminate as an unknown before it happens is a plus. So that's one more little tip I have there. Like I said, leaving the water.
It's Rob again. We're coming up on nearing the time, but one last thing I did want to ask Brian here, and it's kind of I'm going to say a beginner question, but also a more, the longer you're in it, the more it might make sense, and that is wetsuit. So it seems like it could be either a really great investment or a really horrible investment, or I should say horribly steep investment, when you look at the prices of them. So, for my first couple of tries I was doing, I did not have a wetsuit because they were all very short and I was new to it. When I did my first half iron, I actually rented one, wetsuitrental.com, if you guys want to check it out. And I for that race, I did rent a full sleeve, full leg one. And then, I ended up, they do have a program where you can buy it. I didn't buy that one from them, but I did buy a sleeveless one. So it looks like a pair of overalls, if you will. So you have the chest and you have the full legs, but I personally liked a little bit more freedom in the arm rotation for my arms to swing around. And to be honest, it's partly a flotation thing, which I think Brian will share, but it's also a warmth. And my arms, since I'm using them more than anything else, really didn't seem like they were getting that cold. But I just wanted to get his take on it and see what he thought, if it's more of a newbie versus a seasoned athlete, or if it comes down to distance on that.
Yeah, so one of the big things that I've noticed recently with wetsuits, and it's been a while since I bought one, it's been a while, honestly, since I've used one, but one of the things I've noticed with wetsuits and the way they've been marketed, I've seen in a couple instances where these wetsuits are catered to an experienced swimmer, a novice swimmer, an inexperienced swimmer, and then kind of a middle ground in between. Um, and from what I understand, what they're doing is they're modifying the wetsuit with a degree of flotation. So again, I talked earlier about body position and how much of an advantage that is when you can establish a good, efficient body position, meaning you're right on the surface. Your head, your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your feet are all right across the surface of the water. That is really efficient. Well, if you put a little bit of flotation down there around your hips using a wetsuit, a little bit of air, a little couple bubbles there as part of your insulation in the neoprene, that helps lift those non-swimmers' hips and really assists on that body position. So um, I think one of the perspectives, one of the things we assume about wetsuits is it's keep you warm, and I think that was the original intent. But of course, with everything else, there's some technical and some secondary advantages. And one of the things that I think they've been able to do is really market to some non-swimmers to say, hey, we can help you with that body position if you use this particular wetsuit. What brands and what models, I couldn't give those to you, but that's kind of a general picture impression that I have in my head. Now, as far as the original purpose of wetsuits, it's to keep you warm. Where Rob and I live, triathlons are a seasonal thing, typically once the water has warmed up. There are areas of the country where in the summer that water never warms up. And the first one that comes to mind is something like Escape from Alcatraz, where you're swimming in San Francisco Bay. And it's summer, but boy, you'd never know it when you jump into the 50-some degree water of the bay. So of course you're going to have a wetsuit there. I can tell you from experience, I wish I had a wetsuit in one of my swims. There was traditionally a very early triathlon for our area of the country. The water was incredibly cold, and it happened to be an Olympic distance swim. There were about 200 of us on the beach waiting to do the start, and I happened to be standing beside one other young guy. And when I say young, I mean young/foolish. We were the only two out of probably the 200 people that didn't have wetsuits on. And I made the observation in my mind, apparently so did this other stranger, but he was a young guy, and he looked at me and said, nobody else other than us is swimming without a wetsuit. And I said, yeah, I just noticed that too. I said, we're either incredibly dumb or incredibly brave. We're about to find out. So we proceeded to swim the 1,000-meter swim, and I can tell you swimming in 50-some degree water without a wetsuit is not advisable. That hypothermia kicks in real quick. So even with my level of swimming experience, by the time I got back around to shore, there was a person that I knew that was on shore kind of watching and cheering, and so as he saw me come out of the water, he yelled my name. And it's one of those effects that they do in the movies where something is slow motion and it's echoey and foggy. So it was like, and everything was really unclear. My vision was tunnel vision. I really didn't know where I was. And that really didn't change until about 20 minutes into the bike. And looking back on it, man, was it foolish. And the early stages of hypothermia had set in. So certainly that's why there is the use of wetsuits is not only legal but also suggested at times. And again, I guess it comes back to where are you swimming? What kind of body of water are you swimming in? And what part of the season will you primarily be swimming in? So I can tell you since that point, and that was probably a decade ago that I had that hypothermic experience. I haven't touched any cold water since then because of the general season that our triathlons are held, which is mid-July to August primarily, where the water has warmed up. So certainly there are times and places where you need those wetsuits, and that's just going to depend on where you're listening from. But a couple little experiences there just to give you some insight on whether those wetsuits are for you or whether you can let that go by. So something to think about, just like I said, with some of the other equipment, whether it's goggles, some of the other things, there's going to be some individual preferences to take a look at. Wetsuits would be another one of those. I can tell you the one that I do have that I used, as Rob was describing his fit. I believe my model was what was called a quick john. So it was sleeveless. My arms were free to move, and it was also more of on the bottom half, it looked like shorts. So where Rob's was down to his ankles, mine were shorts. So mine went from knees to, of course, the core, your body core, which is where you want to maintain your body heat. But mine was sleeveless, so I had that full range of upper body motion. And again, comfort zone, I wanted to be able to kind of move and reach and kind of feel free with my body. I think the newer fits, the newer materials that they use on wetsuits accommodates for that body motion a little bit better than the primitive version I had a decade ago. But again, just the fit probably has to do also with the temperature of the water. So just more stuff for you to consider down the road as you get into that adventure.
Well, I think that was a lot of fantastic information. And, if Brian, if you don't have anything else to add, I just want to try to go ahead and recap the 5 or 6 things that I had jotted down here. You had started with some tips, and I tried to capture as many of them as I could. And it sounds like body position and or head position is the most critical thing, and you want to keep your body and your as flat to the surface as possible. You do want to work on your side breathing, because breathing to the side is going to help keep that good body position instead of, I guess I'll say front breathing. If you're picking your face straight up out of the water, your feet are going to drop. You want to be able to roll to the side. One great piece of information or quote or takeaway I think that you had said was you need to get yourself to the point where you don't need the bottom, and I put the bottom in air quotes because you had said it very well that you don't see the bottom in the lake, but hey, just because you can see the bottom in the pool, if it's 11 feet down, you're still not using it. I mean, I guess everyone has that. You have that comfort level knowing it's there. But as we had talked about off mic there, if you're having a bad bike, you can go to the granny gear and you can take it easy and basically sit up a little bit. If you're on a run, you can walk. When you're in the pool, when you're in the swim, if you're in a pool, you can grab a lane line and so forth. But getting yourself comfortable to the point where you don't need the bottom, because you're not always going to be able to touch, you're not always going to be able to see it, and that's just a very key thing that everyone's going to have to work on to get comfortable. You had said it several times, and I just want to repeat, and you said, find your own clean water. Whether you want to get out to the front, the side, the back, find what is going to work best for you, and swim your own race. If that means starting in the back, that means that you are going to, potentially be able to draft off some people. So get comfortable with that. And drafting means being close enough to them to be in their wake, but not necessarily, nipping their heels or touching them on every single stroke. We went through a few other things there, but ultimately the last question I would ask and kind of wrap up with is wetsuits seem good. I would go as far to say you would, similar to me, don't believe they're 100% necessary. You don't have to go out and get one. You don't need one for a sprint triathlon, but certainly if you're not confident in the water, it's like buying confidence. It's something that's going to give a little bit of buoyancy and help you out. But obviously, the longer the swim or the colder the swim, it does. I don't want to say 100% become a necessity, but it definitely becomes something that is going to be. If you don't have it, you're sure as heck going to wish that you did. So. I just want to thank Brian for coming on and sharing his expertise. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just give my contact information and say, if you have any questions for Brian, feel free to reach out to me and I'll ask him and I can get back to you. I don't want to share all of his personal information and so forth. But you can reach out to me with any questions or comments with it at rob@enduranceforeveryone.com. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please go out and give us a like or a good or positive review on iTunes, or share it with a friend. Next week, coming up, we will be talking about biking, and as it relates both to actual cycling. When I say actual, I don't want to say that cycling and triathlon isn't actual, but I should say the standalone sport of cycling, and and how it relates to or is different from, biking in a triathlon. And we will wrap out the month talking about running, running both in as it relates to triathlon and the standalone sport. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next week, I hope you guys took away as much from that interview as I did. I have been, doing triathlons now for, 8, almost maybe 9 years, and I still picked up some tips and tricks and some ideas and things to try, especially the breathing techniques, just more so to keep my, my body in position, like Brian kept saying, is the most important thing there. So I hope this was of value. If you guys liked it, please feel free to go out and leave us a review, or just give us a rating, 5 stars or 4 stars, whatever you think we deserve, on iTunes or Podbean, wherever else you listen to it. Please feel free to share this show or any other episodes of this show with any friends or family or anyone that you think could find value in this. Come on over to the Facebook group if you already haven't. You just look for Endurance for Everyone there. You pretty much can find us Endurance for Everyone on everything. I know that John has a Twitter account set up as well as Instagram, and he's trying to become more active there. If you have any questions or comments, any other show topics you'd like to see us go through, please feel free to write directly to us, John at enduranceforeveryone.com or Rob at enduranceforeveryone.com. Lastly, please tune in and subscribe so the show can download to your device. Next week's show is going to be talking about biking and differences between biking for, I'm going to say, fitness or cycling races versus biking and training for triathlon. The following week is going to be same theme except for running. The differences between running races, training, training for triathlon runs, and so forth. Once again, this is another episode of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.